26,000 men were coming. The boy king could barely feel his right hand. That's the truth you need in your head before anything else. The greatest commander in the East was assembling an army, and Jerusalem's crown sat on a teenager whose nerves were dying one by one, yet who refused to step back from the saddle. Rewind. Baldwin IV of Jerusalem was not bred for pity. As a child, he wrestled and rode under the eye of William of Tyre, the court's stern scholar-tutor. During rough play, William noticed something wrong. Baldwin did not flinch when nails dug into the flesh of his arm. Numbness. Diagnosis followed with no illusions: leprosy. In the Latin kingdom, that word meant a future of bandages, pain, and gradual confinement. It did not mean abdication. In 1174, King Amalric died. The throne passed to 13-year-old Baldwin. Regents and factions circled like hawks. Nobles of Outremer against court party climbers. Templars and Hospitallers guarding their own prerogatives. Merchants of the coast counting caravans and risks. The kingdom was a thin strip of ports and fortresses, stretched across too much frontier, living on pilgrim money and grain from the coastal plain. Its strength a few thousand households of mounted knights, plus the disciplined shock troops of the military orders. Against that, to the south and north, rose one name. Saladin had taken Egypt, then moved on Syria after his master's old network frayed. By 1176, he was the central fact of the region, the tax base of the Nile, the cavalry of Syria, the theological banner to unify emirs who preferred profit to coordination. He probed Frankish borders, tested castles, measured response times, and waited for weakness. A minor prince he could ignore, a child king he could break. Baldwin grew into the crown the way a soldier grows into mail plate by plate. He trained despite ulcers and fevers, learned the map like a craftsman studies joints, and understood what his knights needed most: clarity. He promoted men who could move supplies as well as swing swords. He listened to hard officers like the Templars when the terrain demanded steel, and to the Genoese when war meant ships and grain. He knew a static Jerusalem would die. A mobile Jerusalem might live. By 1177, leprosy had numbed his right hand and forced it into a sling on bad days. So he compensated. He practiced with his left, shortened his draw, and kept riding. When word came that Saladin was massing in Egypt for a deep march, ignored the border forts, cut north fast, Baldwin did not wait behind walls or hold a council to write prayers. He moved for Ascalon, the hinge city on the coastal road, to stand with the few he could gather and make the invader notice the crown he had dismissed. This is the frame of our story. A realm with more courage than men, a sultan at high tide, and a sick boy who refused to be a symbol. Next chapter, the crescent rises and the road to Montgisard begins. 26,000 banners rose out of Egypt, and every one of them pointed at Jerusalem. Saladin had decided. Not border raiding, not a test an invasion meant to finish the Latin kingdom, while its ruler was a sick boy, and its nobility was distracted. The muster was deliberate and heavy. From Cairo and Fustat came the Mamluk household cavalry professional guards, drilled to act as one blade. From Syria rode Kurdish and Syrian contingents. From the state lines, Turkoman horse archers. From the Nile, Sudanese light troops and baggage handlers. Engineers brought siege tools, miners, and timber for bridges. Imams and officials set up a mobile court. Pay chests were full. Orders were clear. Ignore the outworks, break the hinge, then take the city. The plan read like a campaign manual. Step 1, cross Sinai fast. Screen the march with cavalry screens that swatted away Frankish scouts. Step 2, bypass Gaza. It could warn, but it could not stop what was coming. Step 3. Seize Ascalon gateway to the coastal road and push straight for Jerusalem before the Franks could concentrate. Saladin understood the Latin weakness. Few field forces, castles spread across too much ground, politics that moved slower than camels. He would not hand them time. By early November, dust plumes marked the columns. The army advanced in echelons, vanguard cavalry, main body, baggage, then rear guard anchored each night on water. The scale of it mattered. 26,000 mouths and hooves turned wells into arithmetic. Quartermasters mapped cisterns. Scouts rode far to lock down springs. And the marching rhythm settled into sunrise departures and noon halts, the heat dictating speed. Before the main host reached Ascalon, forward units overran the approaches. News reached the Sultan that the Frankish King Baldwin had slipped inside with a few hundred knights and some infantry. The gates shut. Good, Saladin thought. The enemy's striking arm was caged. He detached a blocking force to watch the walls and pressed the main body north toward Ramla Lida and the open road to Jerusalem. Why waste days battering a strong port when the capital lay nearly undefended? Here the first cracks appeared, the kind that grow in victory's shadow. With the enemy contained, commanders relaxed the march discipline that keeps large armies from dissolving into crowds. Columns stretched. Foraging parties pushed wide. Units halted to strip villages for fodder and loot. Camp order frayed. Officers expected a triumphal road, not a fight. Inside Ascalon, Baldwin watched the dust fan out and understood exactly what he was seeing. An army too confident to stay tight, a screen too thin to notice a hard ride from the gates, and a sultan convinced the kingdom's sword arm had been sheathed. The boy king gathered the only currency he had: speed and shock. That's the board as we move to contact. A massive host flowing past Ascalon toward an exposed Jerusalem, and a paralyzed king who refuses to sit still. Next, the breakout. 500 knights against the horizon. At dawn, the gates didn't creak. They exploded. Baldwin IV chose movement over safety and turned Ascalon from cage to spring. The blocking force outside, too small, too sure, was trampled before it could form a line. Trumpets, lowered lances, a single burst of shock. The road north was suddenly open. The numbers looked insane on parchment. Roughly 500 mailed knights and a few thousand foot behind them, versus a host that could fill the horizon. But Baldwin wasn't aiming to meet the full host. He was aiming to hit the brain before the limbs knew they were in danger. Scouts fanned ahead. What they brought back made the risk real. The great army was strung over miles, detachments plundering Ramla and Lida, baggage trails drifting, pickets thin and complacent. The Sultan's main camp lay near a low rise called Montgisard, its guard confident and its horses unsaddled. Baldwin made the call no regent would have signed. No garrison duty, no waiting for reinforcements that would never arrive in time. He would ride hard and fast and turn disorder into target. The Templars and Hospitallers took the front ranks. Baronial contingents formed in files behind them. Genoese crossbowmen and local infantry jogged to keep the column tight. Reynald of Chatillon, fierce and clear-eyed, pressed for speed. The king agreed. Keep the column closed, no straggling, no glory chasing. If they reached the camp as one hammer, they had a chance. If they arrived as scattered fists, they were dead. Discipline became a weapon. Helmets stayed buckled in the heat. Water breaks were counted in swallows, not minutes. Messengers rode a shuttle between van and king. passing the same order every mile. Hold formation until the signal. In the center, under a mailed canopy, the boy who could barely feel his right hand kept to the saddle. Beside him rode clergy bearing the relic the kingdom guarded above its walls. The True Cross standard lifted where every eye could find it when fear pressed in. Midday dust on the horizon thickened into tents, grazing lines, and a cluster of standards. This was no battle line. This was a camp. Drums were quiet. Horses were picketed. The Sultan's guard had not expected an enemy to appear from the south at speed. Baldwin halted the column just long enough to turn a march into a formation. 3 lines, Templars to the fore. Behind them, the baronial lances, reserves in the 3rd rank to fill gaps. Crossbowmen slid out to the flanks to swat at any horse archers who rallied. The king dismounted briefly, knelt in the dust, and pressed his forehead to the cross-staff. Then he stood, mounted again, and raised his left hand, the one that still obeyed him. One signal, no speeches. The lines leaned forward, hooves biting, walk to trot to full gallop. Ahead the camp finally woke. Too late. Montgisard was no longer a place on a map. It was the point where 500 men would decide if boldness could be larger than arithmetic. From the ramparts, Ascalon looked like salvation. High stone, deep ditch, strong gates. In truth, it was a cage. Baldwin IV had reached the city with roughly 500 knights, and a few thousand foot just ahead of Saladin's vanguard. If the full Ayyubid host ringed these walls, the kingdom's striking arm would be bottled and starved into surrender. That was the math, until scouts returned with the detail that changes wars. Saladin hadn't wrapped Ascalon in iron. He'd left only a blocking detachment to watch the gates, and pushed his main body onward for the real prize. The road opened to Jerusalem. Confidence bred carelessness. Units peeled off to plunder Ramla and Lydda. Baggage columns stretched. Horse lines wandered. The main camp near Montgisard sat large and under-defended, not a siege. A moving marketplace with swords. Inside Ascalon, the council split hard. Veteran barons argued to bar the gates and pray for a relief that wasn't coming. "Hold the walls," they said. "Bleed them at the ladders." The king listened, face masked in silver to hide the lesions of his disease, fingers numb on the arm of his chair. Then he turned to 2 men who knew the cost of waiting, the masters of the temple and the hospital, and Reynald of Châtillon, savage, lucid, impossible to ignore. Their verdict was simple. Walls won't save you from an enemy already past you. Baldwin chose motion over safety. The plan was narrow, precise, and insane. Break the screen outside Ascalon at dawn, form by companies in the open, and drive straight for the center of gravity before a scattered army remembered how to be one. No glorious chases, no grabbing loot. One blow, together, at speed. Orders rolled down to every file. Lances inspected, girths tightened, spare horses assigned. Genoese crossbowmen would guard the flanks on the march. Sergeants would keep the infantry column closed with poles and curses. Trumpeters would carry the only signal that mattered: charge on command, not before. Water was rationed by swallow, not skin. Anyone who broke formation for plunder would hang. Harsh, yes, but discipline, not numbers, had to carry the day. The relic bearers brought out the True Cross and fixed it beneath the royal standard where every frightened eye could find it. Baldwin dismounted, prayed briefly, and remounted with help. The hand that still obeyed him made the sign, and the mask hid whatever pain flared across his face. He didn't promise victory. He promised movement. At first light, the gates would open, not to surrender, but like a spring released. What looked like a trap was, in fact, an opening, a dispersed enemy, a lax cordon, a camp that trusted its size more than its order. Could 500 knights punch through that mistake before it closed? You tell me, what would you risk if the alternative was slow suffocation behind your own walls? Here is where numbers lied. Saladin crossed the frontier with perhaps 26,000 men, and the confidence of a ruler who had united Egypt and Syria. But on the coastal plain in late November 1177, confidence slid into habit, and habit tamed to error. He treated the campaign like a procession to a foregone victory, not a fight against an enemy who could still move. First, he split the columns. Vanguard, center, baggage, rear, stretched across miles of road and scrub with poor lines of sight and slower lines of command. Couriers rode hard between emirs, but orders lagged behind dust and distance. Second, he turned a march into a harvest. Ramla and Lydda were allowed to be plundered, stores taken, herds driven off, households stripped. Units fanned outward in profitable disorder. Troopers led captured pack animals on reins. Rank files loosened into knots around wagons heavy with taken grain and cloth. Third, he assumed Ascalon was solved. A screening force sat at the gates to bottle Baldwin, and the Sultan moved his main camp forward near Montgisard, confident the road to Jerusalem was opening with each hour. The result was an army that looked huge from a hilltop and hollow at the joints. On paper, Mamluk guard squadrons, Kurdish and Turkoman horse, Sudanese light cavalry, Syrian infantry, engineers and train. In practice, echelons that could not concentrate quickly, detachments that answered to their own tempo, and a headquarters that did not expect to be struck. Tents were pitched with comfort in mind, not contact. Pickets stood, but thin. Horse lines grazed. Much of the guard rotated off armor to rest and water mounts. It was security by reputation, by the assumption that Baldwin was trapped behind Ascalon's walls, and that no Christian force could or would sally far. Saladin's staff work had been exemplary in sieges and set battles. Here, tempo killed staff work. The army center of gravity, its command post, reserve, and baggage, sat at Montgisard like a heart between beats. If an enemy arrived formed and fast, the camp would have to become a battlefield in a minute, and that is not how camps are built. The Sultan's mistake wasn't ignorance of tactics, it was misreading intent. He knew the boy king was sick, the knightly strength of the kingdom thin, the castles strained. He did not factor a sortie aimed at his throat. He allowed his men to believe the fight was over, because the target was weak. Armies absorb a commander's mood. His calm and certainty traveled faster than his couriers. From Ascalon's towers, Baldwin's scouts watched this unfold. Dust plumes drifting apart instead of converging. Plunder trails, the lazy geometry of a camp that wasn't expecting guests. They brought the pattern back to a king who valued one thing above walls: opportunity. Saladin had made the one error a great captain can never allow. He gave his enemy time and space to try the impossible, and in war, that is often enough. They opened Ascalon's gates to attack, not to beg. Before sunrise on the 25th of November 1177, the city stirred like a forge. Reins checked, girths tightened, crosses kissed. Baldwin IV, face masked, right hand numbed by disease, gave the only order that mattered. Out. The portcullis lifted, and the first wave shot through the dusted arch. What Saladin had left to bottle the garrison light horse and foot posted to watch, not to die, never formed a true line. Trumpets snapped the morning air. Lances came level. The screening detachment collapsed under hooves and iron. In minutes, the road was open. This was not a dash for safety. It was a hunt. Baldwin pushed his 500 knights and a few thousand foot onto the coastal plain in a narrow column. Infantry hugging the tracks. Mounted scouts fanning ahead. A small Templar contingent, warned in the night, linked on the move. Priests walked with the true cross beneath the silk canopy. The relic wasn't theater, it was glue. Every man knew what the numbers said. The cross told them why to ride anyway. Discipline set the tempo. No victory shouts, no pursuit past the first route. The blocking force was rolled, stripped of messengers and left where it fell. Couriers loped back to confirm the gap. Others sprinted ahead, cutting a low arc inland to avoid watch posts on the main road. The column kept to folds in the ground, using scrub and dunes to break sight lines, halting only to water mounts from skin and bucket. When files bunched, marshals widened the lane. When the pace sagged, they shortened straps and pressed on. The king rode where he could be seen, not because he craved it, but because men do not break when the one who should be in bed is in the saddle. By mid-morning, the first scouts returned. What they reported matched the pattern glimpsed from Ascalon's towers. Saladin's army was not one fist, but many fingers. Columns stretched and separated. Trains heavy with plunder from Ramla and Lydda. Officers riding hard to knit order that wouldn't hold. Most important, they marked the heart of the host. The Sultan's standard and the main camp pitched near the low rise of Montgisard. Tents comfortable, pickets thin, horses at graze. Baldwin heard it once and decided. There would be no defensive shadowing, no waiting for Jerusalem's walls. The only chance against 26,000 was to hit the part that thought it could not be hit fast enough, that separate echelons could not close, hard enough that panic would do the multiplying for them. Formation orders ran the column like current. Knights to the front by banner, infantry to seal the flanks, crossbowmen set to open lanes at the last moment. The true cross moved to the center of gravity, the king beside it. Helmets came down, lances came up. The breakout had taken an hour. The approach would take one more. After that, either history would blink or it would bury 500 names under the dust of Montgisard. He knelt first, then drew a line no number could erase. On the slope before Montgisard, 25th November, 1177, Baldwin IV had the true cross planted in the dust. Priests lifted it under a sun already dropping west. The teen king bowed until his brow touched the wood. His right hand, half dead from leprosy, could not feel it. His left signed the cross. Anyway, when he rose, the silver mask came down over ruined skin. The voice behind it was steady. Form by banners. We strike the center. Every instinct in a smaller force screams flank. Baldwin chose the opposite. The Ayyubid heart, Saladin's guard, the nerve knot of orders and morale sat in a camp that looked like victory. Horses unsaddled, tents comfortable, pickets thin, officers scattered, trying to pull looters back from Ramla and Lydda. Hit the rim, and you get pressed between closing columns. Hit the heart, and you turn dispersion into rout. Orders ran the length of the line. Knights sorted by lords. Temple contingents right of the cross. Baronial banners left. Household men around the king. A few thousand foot compacted the flanks to keep horse archers from needling in. Crossbowmen were told to hold fire for the last 60 paces, one brace to tear screens, then make way, no drums, no boasts. Just bridles creaking and the beat of hooves feeling for speed. They moved by the book, walk, trot, canter, gallop, lances lowered, shields locked. The first Ayyubid outposts broke like reeds. Messengers never got off the ground. Ahead, the Mamluk guard scrambled to mount, officers shouting men into a line that wasn't ready. The Christians didn't angle. They aimed a wedge aligned on the Sultan's standard. The king placed himself beside the cross, where everyone could see the mask and draw breath from it. At 60 paces, the crossbows sang one ugly, heavy ripple. Screens tore. At 40, a few enemy arrows rattled on mail. At 20, there was no more time to shoot. Then the weight hit. Not a blur, an impact. Lances punched through light armor. Destriers shouldered men off balance. The first rank shattered the seal. The second rank widened it. The third flooded it. Within the breach, blades shortened and the work turned to elbows and iron. Baldwin's marshals hold the point toward the Sultan's silk, the single place whose fall could turn confusion into flight. Saladin's household fought hard. No army that had crossed Sinai with him was soft, but command lives on pulse and sight lines, and both vanished in the crush. Camp servants bolted, baggage animals reared. Riders tried to dress files on ground churned to powder. What the numbers promised never arrived. Cohesion columns strung out by hours could not be there in minutes. Baldwin did not chase fugitives. He kept the wedge moving forward, keeping the cross at the hinge so the whole line could feel it. The order held because the eyes behind the mask did 500 against a nation only works if you never blink. He didn't. The center bent. Then it began to break. It wasn't a battle line. It was a market caught mid-breath. Cook fires, grazing mounts, tether ropes. Officers riding in circles trying to pull looters back from Ramla and Lydda, and into that untidy heart came a single, disciplined wedge. 500 lances behaved like one weapon. The first shock split the Ayyubid center where Saladin's household guard tried to harden. Mamluks vaulted to saddles, shields up, lances down, but formation is seconds, and the Franks had already spent them. The true cross at the hinge steadied the push. Baldwin IV, face hidden by the silver mask, held the point on the Sultan's silk. Crossbowmen fired once into the screens and peeled aside. The second rank drove the break wider. The third rank poured through. A tent ridge collapsed. Baggage camels panicked. Grooms cut hobbles and were ridden down. For a breath, the guard held the kind of tight, professional knot you only get from men who've lived under the same standard for years. Then the knot met mass. Destriers shouldered through. Ashwood lances splintered. Maces and short swords took over. The Mamluks were brave. The ground betrayed them. No clear front, no room to wheel, no reserve in reach, columns still strung along dusty tracks. Ours to the south could not arrive in minutes. You could feel the turn. A command tent folded. A trumpet stopped mid-note. Riders looked not at the enemy, but behind them, measuring space to run next an emotion in war. It's a geometry angles that suddenly point only one way. The center broke. When a center goes, flanks become doors. Men chose the nearest and ran. Baldwin did not chase the first fugitives. He kept the wedge grinding forward, cutting the camp in two, forcing every Ayyubid eye to accept the same picture. The cross advancing, the guard shrinking, no counterline forming. That picture spreads faster than any messenger. Units still cohesive began to back their horses. Those already frayed turned and bolted. Tents burned, carts overturned. The dust became a wall. At the core, Saladin fought time. Staff officers tried to rally a rearward screen. Trumpeters called for a pivot. Couriers vanished into the press and did not return. When the king's wedge punched within bowshot of the Sultan's banner, survival replaced choreography. The household formed a last ring. Servants hauled the swift racing camel Saladin mounted, gathered a handful of guard, and withdrew not in parade order, but in the thin, ruthless line that keeps a sovereign alive. The rout fed on itself. Men dropped plunder to ride faster. Others were thrown as panicked mounts collided. More died trampled at stream crossings. By sunset, what had been the largest Muslim host in the field was a scatter of fugitives, angling for Egypt and Syria, leaving armor, banners, and certainty on the ground. On the ridge above the wreck, the red lion snapped in the wind. Baldwin did not remove the mask. He raised the cross once, a signal more than a prayer, and the hammer lifted again toward the rear gates of the flying army. The glass was already broken. The field was already beaten when the killing began in earnest. Once Saladin's banner vanished into the dust, the wedge split into packets, and the hunt ran north and east along the tracks toward Ramla, and litter trumpets kept the rhythm, short calls to regroup, long blasts to drive on, so the pursuit did not dissolve into a riot. Knights cut free the baggage camels first. Without loads, the animals stampeded through their own columns, breaking what order remained. Men flung shields to gain a heartbeat of speed. Others dropped sacks of coin and cloth to lighten saddles. The ground took more than swords did. By late afternoon, the banners of Ayyubid regiments lay in heaps with torn guy ropes and shattered poles. Guard tents were stripped of fine mail and horse trappers. Cart axles snapped where they'd been shoved into ditches to block the Frankish push. A royal chest silks, coins, a writing kit was found half open near a trampled cook fire. Crossbowmen, who had marched hard from Ascalon behind the charge, fanned along the margins to finish stragglers at bowshot, then fell to securing prisoners of value. Grooms who knew routes, officers who might ransom, scouts who had maps. Most others were left to the sand and their fear. Casualties told the story cleanly. Among the Franks, the roll was short fallen destriers, broken shoulders, a handful of lances threw mail at the first crash, far fewer dead than any sane man would have predicted at dawn. Among Saladin's host, the Count ran into the thousands, cut down in the camp lanes, crushed at fords, suffocated in dust under panicked mounts. Numbers from chronicles vary, but the balance is not in doubt. The army that set out in ranks returned to Egypt in fragments. That night, surgeons worked by torchlight in the Frankish lines, washing wounds with wine, binding ribs, cutting rings off swollen fingers. Quartermasters sorted the recovered plunder bolts of cloth, saddles, spare bows, coins, stamped with Cairo dye marks, and sealed it under guard. The True Cross stood at the center of the bivouac. The king's silver mask did not come off until the last patrol returned. Discipline won the day and saved the night. Baldwin forbade deep chase after sunset. Units were pulled back by banner to rally points marked with lanterns. Horses watered and walked until they cooled. Watches were posted toward the roads to Gaza and the coastal plain. Only then did the arithmetic of survival settle in. Jerusalem would not fall this winter. Caravans that had started toward the holy city turned back, safe. Messengers galloped for the capital with the line every citizen needed to hear the king lives. The cross has prevailed. The Sultan has fled. No one in the camp mistook victory for peace. Saladin still reigned. Egypt and Syria were not broken, only shocked. But Montgisard had bought what the kingdom lacked most: time. Time to refill cisterns, mend walls, call in garrisons, and remind allies that the crown of Jerusalem could still put steel in the field. The wrecked camp smoldered behind them. Ahead, the road bent toward the city Baldwin had set out to save, saved for now, by 500 men who refused to accept the sum of a ledger. Montgisard did not make Baldwin careless. It made him bold. If 500 could break 26,000 in a single afternoon, then the kingdom could do more than survive. It could throttle the roads that fed Saladin's power. So in the spring of 1178, the crown drove a stake into the map at the Jordan's Jacob's Ford. With a highway between Damascus and Egypt pinched to a crossing, stone rose fast. The new fortress Chastelet wasn't a wall, it was a chokehold. Put a garrison there, and every courier, caravan, and column north-south would pass under Frankish eyes and engines. Saladin read the same map and tried a different weapon first, gold. Envoys offered 60,000, then 100,000 dinars if work would stop. Baldwin refused. He didn't need a windfall. He needed leverage. Templars moved in with engineers and masons. Ditches were cut, towers sheeted in fresh ashlar, water stores filled. The message to Damascus was simple. We're not hiding behind Jerusalem's gates. The answer came with soldiers, not scrolls. In June 1179, while Chastelet's outer work still rang with chisels, Baldwin marched to screen it and collided with Saladin near Marj Ayoun, south of Banyas. The Sultan, chastened by Montgisard, fought like a different man, recon in force, feints, dust, and timing. Christian cavalry bit on a retreat. Ayyubid wings closed. The field turned. The Templar master, Odo of Saint-Amand, was taken. Noble banners went down. The king himself escaped only by a guard's drag to a remount. It was not a rout of the realm, but it was a clear defeat, and it cut the screen that had kept pressure off the river. Saladin didn't pause. In late August 1179, he drove straight for Jacob's Ford. The fortress was garrisoned, Templars, men-at-arms, work crews, but its skin wasn't finished. Siege engines thudded from dawn to dark. Sappers went under the tower roots. Wood props burned in the mine galleries. Stone shuddered. A face of the keep folded in with a roar. Assault parties punched through the collapse. What followed was no tournament. Hard rooms, short blades, blind corners, and by evening the banner above the breach was Ayyubid green. Many of the defenders died where they stood. Others were led out in chains. The next day, Saladin ordered Chastelet leveled. By design, nothing useful was left for the Franks, but heat-cracked blocks and a lesson. This is the hinge the audience should feel. Montgisard bought time. Chastelet tried to turn time into advantage. Saladin answered with discipline, not fury learned from 1177, applied in 1179. The kingdom still stood, but the Sultan had torn Baldwin's hand off the Jordan artery and proved that the miracle of one winter could be answered by hard work in the next question to you. Was the gamble at Jacob's Ford necessary nerve or overreach that spent the coin Montgisard earned? He should have been a rumor, not a commander, but the rumor would not die. In late 1183, while Saladin ringed Kerak with engines and tents, while 8 mangonels hammered the walls and smoke smeared the Moab sky, word ran ahead of the dust. The king is coming. Not the golden youth of Montgisard, the leper king, almost blind, fingers bandaged, carried on a litter like a corpse that refused burial. Inside Kerak, the occasion was a wedding. Isabella of Jerusalem to Humphrey IV of Toron, cut short by the Sultan's guns. Stones punched courtyards, fire pots burst in the outer bailey. The garrison rationed water and calm. They sent a message west. Hold if you can, help if you will. In Jerusalem, counselors urged delay, delegation, surrender to weather and arithmetic. Baldwin IV had nothing left to spend but himself. He ordered the true cross borne out had a bed framed in iron, and told his guard, "If I cannot ride, you will carry me." The march east was not a pageant. It was logistics and pain. Relay teams under the poles, surgeons at the ready, a vanguard clearing wells, rear guard watching for Ayyubid screens. Baldwin spoke little. When he did, it was deployment, not prayer. He gathered the field host in Jerusalem, picked up contingents near Hebron and Bethlehem, then pressed down the King's Highway toward the Moab Plateau. Scouts reported what he needed to hear. Saladin was committed, trenches dug, engines bedded. His foragers roamed far, certain the Franks would not dare. They dared. The Latin column crested the last ridge with the royal standard high and the cross beside it. Trumpets answered from the walls. Kerak's garrison signaled they could sally if relief came close. Saladin's outposts rode in with the same line. It is the king, no, not mounted, carried. The message was clearer than any tactic. If the Franks were mad enough to bring their dying sovereign to the front, they were mad enough to force a battle at once. Saladin weighed 3 facts learned since 1177. He had no need to trade a set-piece fight at altitude. The Christian host had cohesion under the banner, and every hour he stayed, more levies would reach Baldwin from the hill country. He ordered the siege lifted, engines spiked, lines pulled back, herds and baggage turned onto the road. It was not flight. It was refusal to hand the enemy a second miracle. Baldwin's litter was borne into Kerak, not as a triumphal chariot, but as proof. The city still stood. The wedding guests were alive. The garrison's hands met the king's bandaged ones. No fortress had fallen. No charge had shattered armies. Yet a siege ended because a man too weak to stand insisted on being seen. This was Baldwin's last great victory, not of steel, but of presence, a will that moved an army and made a sultan reconsider. Tell me in the comments, how much of war is numbers and how much is the decision not to yield? The king who beat a giant with 500 lancers died at 24. In March 1185, Baldwin IV, blind, bandaged, unbowed, slipped out of a war he had kept from breaking the kingdom. He left a stopgap. His young nephew, Baldwin V, crowned to block the factions. It bought a year. In 1186, the child died. The court split like dry wood. Sibylla moved first, seized the crown, and placed it on her husband, Guy de Lusignan, a pleasant figure with no grip on command. The careful arithmetic of Baldwin's reign vanished overnight. Power shifted to the loudest blade. Renaud of Chatillon, Lord of Kerak, treated truces like targets. Against the treaties that kept caravans moving and borders quiet, he struck a massive Mecca-Damascus convoy, an insult and a casus belli rolled into one. With rumors that Saladin's own kin traveled under its protection, the Sultan demanded redress, return the plunder, hand over Renaud. Guy hesitated, bluffed, and did nothing. The message to Damascus was simple. The kingdom had lost the adult in the room. Saladin called the banners. Egypt, Syria, Jazeera. Columns converged. Guy, pushed by court bravado and bad counsel, marched the full host in July 1187 into the furnace west of Tiberias. The plan should have been water first, battle second. Instead, the army left the springs, chased the mirage, and met the Sultan on burned hills, locals called the Horns of Hattin. Saladin's men fired the scrub, cut the Christians from the lake, and watched thirst do their work. The True Cross stood in the center as the line collapsed. By afternoon, the infantry was down, the cavalry ringed, the standards lost. Renaud was dragged to Saladin's tent and executed by the Sultan himself. Guy lived to be ransomed. The cross went east with the victors. The kingdom's field army was gone in a day. After Hattin, the walls that Baldwin had bought time to maintain could not fight alone. Cities opened from fear or after brief resistance. In October 1187, Jerusalem faced reality. Balian of Ibelin negotiated surrender to spare a sack. Ransoms were set, captives counted, shrines respected. The holy city changed hands without a massacre, but it changed hands because the army that might have relieved it no longer existed. What remains of Montgisard after Hattin? It is still a fact. 500 lancers smashed the dispersed host and sent a great sultan riding for his life. It is also a warning. One day of audacity cannot carry a kingdom run by vanity and noise. Baldwin's victories on the sand at 1177 and in a litter before Kerak were time, not salvation. Time must be used. It wasn't. The result was Hattin, the fall of Jerusalem, and years of recovery bought at far higher cost. So tell me, was Montgisard a miracle or a lesson ignored?